Good afternoon and welcome to the fifth concurrent session of the day, Learning by Doing, Incentive Alignment, and Low Stress Grading. Our presenter today is Dr. Stefani Milovanska-Farrington from University of Tampa. Dr. Stefani Milovanska-Farrington teaches microeconomics at the University of Tampa. She obtained her PhD in economics from the University of South Florida in 2018. Her research interests include labor, health, education, and family economics. She has published articles in academic journals, including Economics and Human Biology, Journal of Family and Economic Issues, Education Economics, Research in Economics, and others. In 2020, she published a textbook supplement called Microeconomics, The Science of Choice, designed for principles of microeconomics classes. If you have any questions for the presenter during the session, please feel free to enter those into the Q&A section at the bottom of the Zoom room screen, and we will address them at the end of the talk. On that note, I will hand it over to our presenter.
Thank you very much, Kirsten, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. Okay, so hello everybody, and let's start. So when I talk to colleagues, almost all professors share with me that they had to make certain changes to the courses they teach after we moved to online and hybrid courses after COVID started. So I had to make those changes as well, and I use this opportunity to experiment, to try something new. So what I will share with you today is what I tried, where the idea came from, what my teaching approach is, how I grade the students, what are the advantages and disadvantages of this approach, what feedback I got from the students, both from conversations from the students and also from the teaching evaluations at the end of the semester. And of course, what I learned, what could be done better. And of course, I'll be happy to answer your questions at the end. So first of all, where did the idea come from? Like many other people, my institution transitioned to online classes after spring break last year. In March, immediately after spring break, we had to move to online classes. I started to think how I can make the most of the time that I have with my students during the Zoom meetings. Especially at the beginning, students had a lot of issues, internet issues, some students had technology concerns, not to mention that some of the students were not even in the US, so there were time zone concerns, and students were missing parts of the lecture. And when they miss a part of the lecture, then they don't understand the rest of it. That's the case in economics, but also probably in other subjects. When they miss part of the lecture and they stop understanding, they don't want to participate so much, they are less engaged, they are less interested in the subject. So I was thinking how I can deal with all this. Sometimes practice questions help, but we don't always have enough time to do all of that during regular class sessions. So I wanted to provide more flexibility to my students. I wanted to provide them either more or better opportunities to learn, to understand the material, and at the same time to maximize the time that I have with the students to practice that material. And I also wanted to have time for more engaging exercise. I wanted to increase student engagement, which I think by now everybody understands is even more important in online and hybrid courses than in a regular classroom. So I was starting to think how I can achieve that. So I came up with one teaching approach, which you might think is very similar to the flipped classroom model, and it is, with a special emphasis on how I grade the students and the structure and being very organized. So the structure is exactly the same for every chapter that we cover. Every week, the students have to read the chapter and they have to watch the videos that I provide for them, in which I basically teach that material, and they have to watch those videos in advance. They have to take a quiz related to that chapter, and then we practice that material in class or on Zoom in the following week. And by practice, I mean we solve practice questions, we see some examples from news articles, we might watch some more engaging videos and have more discussions related to those. And then the students have a homework assignment related to that chapter in the week after. So for example, chapter 1 will be structured in the following way. Students will have to read chapter 1 and watch the videos related to it in the first week of classes. They have to take a quiz related to that chapter. Then in week 2, we'll have to practice that chapter in class. And then students will have homework related to that chapter in week 3. So you might notice several things. The first thing is that at some point in week 3 and after week 3, students will have to work on 3 chapters every week. So that kind of helps the students make the connection between different chapters. You might also notice something else, that if you have, let's say in my case, I have 12 chapters to cover. This structure implies that students will have 12 quizzes, 12 homework assignments, whatever else you are asking the students to do, including exams, project, or something else. So that might seem like a lot of work for the students, and they might be unhappy about it. But the thing is that if it's not stressful, if students understand the benefit and they're convinced that this is in their best interest, they will probably not mind it so much. So my question was how I could achieve that. And I started asking myself what my students have told me before, even before COVID started. What is the feedback that I've got from the students? What have they shared with me before, and how I can achieve that? So one of the things that my students have always shared with me is that they prefer to have shorter homework assignments, even if they're more frequent. So that was the easy part, because that worked perfectly for my plan. And previously, I had assigned students one homework assignment for every other chapter, basically a homework assignment covering 2 chapters at a time. Now I just do one homework assignment for every chapter. They are slightly shorter, but it works perfectly for this approach. Another feedback that students have shared with me is that they prefer the homework to be just graded for submission, not for accuracy, which, to be honest with you, I don't like at all. I don't like it because this kind of encourages the student to submit something just so that they can get the points, and that's not the point. The point is for them to really understand the material, to work on it, and to kind of learn by doing, not just to submit something for the points. So, but I also didn't want to impose that additional stress on the students so that they kind of fight for every point. So what I came up with is to have the homework assignments um, graded in a slightly different way. So students get full credit for a homework assignment if they provide an answer and a solution or a justification of their answers to every single question in the homework. So in this way, I'm okay with mistakes. I mean, I tell even my students, that's the way to learn. You make mistakes, then you learn from those mistakes, and that's okay. And I can see what those mistakes are, and I can explain, I can address them in class. But I want to make sure that you have really thought about every single question and you know why you have provided that answer. If the question is a problem, how you have solved it, how you got the final answer. If it is a short answer question, justify your answer. I just want to see that you have really thought about that question, that you know why your answer is the one it is. And in this way, the homework assignment is not really graded just for submission, but also students are not worried. They're not so concerned about every single thing that they have written and whether they have made one small mistake or not. And we have to have the quizzes because otherwise students will probably not look at the material in advance. But again, the quizzes are graded very leniently. While the homework assignments contain short answer questions and problems where students have to explain and write and justify their answers, the quizzes are very, very short. They usually have about 10 multiple choice questions. I give students 3 attempts and they need just 50% to receive full credit. So again, I don't want to impose the stress on them. I want to make sure that they have read something in advance and they have some idea what we are talking about. The quizzes are not proctored. So that kind of, I notice, encourages students to take notes, and they were bringing those notes to class, and they were taking those notes because they wanted to use them on quizzes. So I kind of, and they also learn from taking those notes and having them in class. That also helps them learn kind of indirectly, but it helps. As you can guess, this is very lenient grading of homework assignments and quizzes. So they bring very few points. They contribute to a very small percentage to the final grade. And then the exams will actually show what students know. The exams are proctored. They have short answer questions and problems. So that's where I can see what students have really learned. One thing that I'm very strict about, and I think students know from the very beginning, I make sure that they know it from the very beginning, is that I'm strict about deadlines, and I tell students why. Students like knowing the reason why you're doing things. So for the quizzes, I tell them, if you submit a quiz later, this defeats the purpose of the whole structure of the course. I know that anything can happen, so I'll count only 10 out of 12 in my case. In your case, the numbers might be slightly different, but that is to account for the fact that anything can happen. You might forget, you might have some issue, you might not have a reason to not do the quiz on time. But in general, no late quizzes will be allowed and counted. The same for homework, but for the homework, my reason is different. I post the answers to the homework assignments immediately after the deadline, and it's just not fair for the other students if I accept late assignment. So, and students know that, and I also tell them that I want them to have all materials as early as possible to allow the students as much time as possible to prepare when they have all the materials they need. So that's why I don't accept late assignments. But again, the arrangement is the same. I don't count all of them. I will drop 2 of the homework assignments to account for the fact that anything can basically happen. All due dates are specified in the syllabus, so students know them from the very beginning of the class. I also send reminders to the students a lot, and when I talk to students, they have shared with me that they really appreciate those reminders. It's not mandatory to do that, of course, but students really appreciate it. And one thing that's not mandatory either, but I kind of noticed that it helps students stay organized and kind of not forget so many things, is that the due date for the quizzes was the same day and time every single week. So the structure is kind of the same the entire semester. The same is true for the homework assignments. And of course, I encourage students to complete quizzes, homework assignments as early as possible, but it's good to kind of be structured and follow the same, to be consistent and follow the same structure every week. Regarding the homework assignments, as I mentioned earlier, they start in week 3, while the quizzes start in week 1. So that kind of sets, that prepares the students that they will have to study. They have to prepare from the very first week of classes, and they have to study for that class. Regarding the homework assignments, as I mentioned, students get full credit as long as they provide a solution, not just an answer to every single question. So mistakes are fine, they are the way for us to learn, but I want to make sure that they really think about those questions and they not just write something to get the points. Again, no late homework assignments are allowed for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And then very similarly to the quizzes, they don't contribute to a large percentage of the grade because they're just graded so leniently. Again, the due dates are specified from the beginning of the semester. And I have the homework assignment similarly to the quizzes due the same day and time of the week, every week, so that students kind of don't get confused. And also this arrangement with the homework assignments, encouraging students to provide their answers and solutions. I noticed something very interesting happening on exams after that. So previously, I've always told my students, when you have an exam, explain your answer, because if you provide just the final answer of a question, it is either right or wrong. So you either get all points or nothing. But if you provide an explanation how you got that answer, you might be eligible for some partial credit. And last semester, when I first tried this, I just forgot to tell my students that, just to remind them this about exam, but they already were, I guess, in the habit of doing that for homework assignments. So I noticed that they started providing those answers and solutions on exams as well. So that was a nice surprise for me. And also it kind of gave me some confidence that this really works and helps students learn. And at the same time, they're not so stressed about it. And of course, in addition to the quizzes, homework assignments, as I mentioned, we have exams. In my class, I also assign a project to the students. So despite that lenient grading of the quizzes and the homework, there are ways for you to understand exactly how much they have learned. This approach has advantages and disadvantages. So I will mention some of, or the ones that I have noticed so far. So regarding the advantages, students like that flexibility that this approach offers them. They can watch those videos with the new material at a convenient time. They can watch it multiple times. They can rewatch part of the video if they have missed or haven't understood fully part of the lecture. So it gives them more flexibility so they don't miss important things that they need to know. In addition, and probably most importantly, it gives me much more time for practice in class. We have more time to do even to solve even harder problems, to discuss more things, to look at more news articles, to do more video examples, to have some more kind of discussions, activities that are more engaging for the students. So that also increases student engagement. And also, when students have prepared at home, they participate more in class because they know what we are talking about. So that approach kind of allows for more experiential education, learning by doing, and I noticed that students respond very well to it. It also encourages students to prepare regularly because they all have all of those things that they have to do, the quizzes, the homework assignments, and just everything that they have to do. So there is less room for procrastination and just waiting to prepare for in the last minute for the exams. And when I was talking to my students before exams, I always talk to them right before class or after class, and I ask them, hey, how do you feel about the exam? And previous semesters, they have told me, oh, I still haven't reviewed everything. I still have a couple of things to do. When I tried this approach, their response was slightly different. They said, oh, I feel comfortable. I already feel like I know the material. I just have to review it a little bit, maybe review some of the practice questions that we have done, and I feel okay. So they don't feel so stressed, so pressured right before exams. I think that is good for the students and it kind of helps them do better. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I want to believe that this approach teaches students to be a little bit more organized, more responsible, just because they have to keep track of all the things that they have to do and kind of stay organized and they have to do all of those things every week. Of course, there are disadvantages. One of them is that students might think, especially at the beginning, that it is a lot of work. That's why it's very, very important to kind of convince the students from the beginning of the class, maybe from the first class, that this is not so much more work for them. It is just they have to do different things at home and different things in class. Using the traditional approach, they will have to do more of the practice questions, more of the practice and understanding exercises at home. And with this approach, they have to watch those videos, they have to prepare, they have to be familiar with the material at home, but then we do the practice and clarify everything that is unclear in class. So it's not more work for them, it is just different kinds of activities are done at home and in the classroom. And also, um, they have to understand the structure very well. If they don't understand how it works, in what week they have to take what quiz and do what homework and what we do in class, they will get confused. So it's very important that they understand the structure, what they have to do in every week, how this whole thing works. And in my case, it worked. I mean, students understood the structure. I'll share some of the feedback that they gave to me a little in a later slide, so you will see. But it's very important that they understand that structure and follow it. Another thing that I don't know if it is a disadvantage so much, but you might feel it is that you have to prepare, especially if this is the first time you're doing this, you have to prepare all those videos where you teach the material to provide to the students and also prepare some more activities, some more things to do in class. So maybe the second time you do this, you have to probably record some newer videos, but not all of them. So the second time you do this, it's probably better. The first time it's probably a little bit more work, but it's not that bad. I mean, it worked. It worked for me. It didn't feel like a lot of work. So you have to prepare those videos and also prepare other exercises for the students in the classroom. One thing that's not mandatory, but as I mentioned, students share that it always helps them and they really appreciate it, is to send them reminders. So this means that not just the students, but you also have to be organized, especially if you have promised students to send them those reminders and they rely on them. So you also have to think, oh, what should I remind the students today? I had it on my calendar and I just remember what day I have to remind them what. Again, it's not mandatory, but students have it. Yes, I already mentioned that the students have to understand the structure from the very beginning of class. Some feedback that I got from the students, actually this feedback is, it is in quotation marks because actually this is from my student evaluations of teaching last semester. So you can see that students love the activities. The activities help students learn. They like that learning by doing idea. And you can see what they share with me. In-person practice was very helpful. Assignment, even quizzes and homework assignments help them learn, and the class discussions. So this seems to help students learn. Another thing that I mentioned a little earlier is that it's very important to be consistent, to follow the same structure, the same procedure every week so that students don't get confused. And that's exactly what students shared, that it was easy to follow the same procedure every week, and then so on. Just they say very similar things in this feedback that I have provided here. And finally, the students like the engagement. You can see what they share, that the approach kept them engaged. They enjoy the topics, they enjoy the in-class discussions, love the engagement and enthusiasm. So these are all good things. So what did I learn? Learned a couple of things. The first thing that I learned was not so, I mean, it's not something unexpected. It's probably something more like a confirmation of what we knew from before. It was expected that students learn the best by doing, by trying things, by practicing. This is true for economics, but also in other subjects, I guess it is very similar. Students also respond very well to practice. They like hearing real world applications. And something that I noticed is that their interest in economics, the interaction, they like the interaction, that this approach increased their interest in economics. There is actually a question in our evaluations of teaching asking about students' interest in the course. And I've always struggled with that, to be honest with you. So when I tried this for the first time last semester, that score on interest in the course actually increased. So it looks like students really liked that, those discussions, those seeing more applications, more real world examples, and just the approach in general, I suppose. The students all shared with me, when I was talking to them, that they really like that low stress homework. They don't mind providing those detailed solutions and justifications of their answers, but they like the idea that they are not so stressed if they make a mistake. And as I mentioned, I noticed that they started doing this even on exams, even there where when I was not asking specifically for a detailed solution, they were providing it. So this kind of gives me an idea that this approach helps them try to really understand how they get those answers, why the things are the way they are. One thing that I still don't know what is best, and I think I'm doing it kind of not as good as it could be, is that for quizzes they need 50% to get full score, and they have 3 tries to get that. So it seems like, I'm not sure whether this is a good enough incentive. At the beginning of the semester, it seemed like it was enough. At the end of the semester, I don't know whether students started giving up or they were just tired, but I had a feeling that that was not enough of an incentive to help students prepare and watch those videos so carefully and just know the material so well. So maybe probably 75% given 3 attempts, or maybe only 1 try and 50% would be better, or maybe take the average of the 3 attempts, or something like that might work better. I still don't know what is best here. Just in general for this approach, maybe some approach which shares the characteristics of both the traditional teaching approach and this kind of flipped classroom approach might be better. So if you're wondering what I'm doing this semester, I'm actually trying something like this. So students still have to do some things in advance at home. They still have to watch those videos and all the things that I mentioned. But I teach a little bit more in class, mostly with the help of the students. We kind of summarize all the material and everything that is most important for them to know from every chapter, and we do that together. And then we still have time to do some practice, to have some discussions, to look at some real world examples from news articles and other videos. So we'll see how that works this semester. But that's kind of pretty much the idea. Hopefully it is helpful. If you have any questions, I am more than happy to try to answer. Hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions. And I also wanted to thank you so much for your attention.
Yes, thank you. So as Stephanie mentioned, if you have any questions, please share them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll give everyone a minute to add their questions or comments in there. We did already have one come in. Could you share a little bit about how you might emphasize PVL? From my experience, I'm assuming project-based learning, or if you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so the project that I assigned to the students is a very short project. So because I teach principles of economics, it's a principles course. It is taken by students who are not necessarily economics majors or business majors. So it is hard to give them something too complicated or something too long because they'll protest probably too much. But the project that I give them is very short. They basically, the purpose of the project, it has several purposes. So one of the purposes is to encourage students to look for real world examples of what we learn. So what I basically ask them to do is to find a news article which is related to microeconomics that provides an example of an idea or a concept or a principle that we have discussed in class, just to summarize that article with a couple of sentences to explain and also to explain why they think this article provides an example of that concept or idea that they have chosen. So that's usually, I provide a template to the students. So they have to, I ask them to provide the source of the article, a short summary, then to list what concepts or ideas they have chosen, and then that a kind of analysis that they provide, why they think it provides an example of that concept or idea. So the entire project, I call it a project just to call it something different from an assignment, but it's usually something like 2 pages. And it works. And students actually don't mind doing that because it is an easy project. It contributes to 10% of the grade in the course in my case. I don't know that if that's too much or too little, but I have just so many things that each one of them has to contribute to a small percentage to work. But I don't know. I've noticed the students like doing it. They usually do well on it. And even some of the students, when I talk to them, share that they really like finding those examples and finding those, finding themselves that what we learn is actually applicable to the real world. Now I'm thinking of another project, more kind of business oriented, because I teach in a college of business, but I'm still working on that. So we'll see our first experiment, and then I can share at a different time. But this is the current project that I give to the students, the news articles project.
Great, thank you. Another question came in. They said, thank you for sharing. If both quizzes and homework are low stakes, what makes up the bulk of their grade?
So they have as I mentioned, so they have homework assignments, they have quizzes, they have 3 midterm exams, a final exam, a project, and a very, very short presentation. So they have a lot of things to do. And I've noticed that it works better, and students don't feel kind of better if each one of these things contributes to a smaller percentage of the final grade. Because if they make a mistake, if they miss something, it's not such a big deal. If one exam contributes to 100% of their grade, that kind of puts a lot of pressure on the students, and because if they make a mistake, as we all know, anything can happen on an exam. So they might fail even if they have studied. But in this way, there are a lot of ways in which they can get points. So they have quizzes, homework, exams, final exam, project, and presentation in my case.
All right, thank you. And then I think this might be a comment here. I think building the routine into the course is especially important in this rush to online. It provides enough guidance for students so that you know they're putting in the work. It's good practice. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And a question, what was your class average?
So the average was exactly the same as it used to be before I started trying this. The only difference is that before, to get that average, I was giving some extra credit assignments at the end of the semester. Now I don't give extra credit assignments. And I think that increase in the grades came from the fact that students started providing their explanations and answers on exam questions. So they were getting partial credit, and that increased their scores on exams. So I didn't need to give them any extra credit assignments or anything at the end. Of course, students wanted it. They requested, but it wasn't really needed because the average was already what it was before with the extra credit assignments. So it was just the regular average that I usually have. Just I didn't need the extra credit assignments to achieve it.
Great. And the same person said that is impressive.
Thank you.
They're muted, so unfortunately they can't respond directly to you. Another question, did your rate of success or failure stay the same?
Yeah, it was. I think there were about. I think I have exactly about the same number of students who failed the class. Not so many. The average was the same, so it was about the same. The grading did not change, but I think that idea that I didn't need those extra credit assignments to achieve that was indicative of students learning and really knowing how to do things.
Great. And another one here, thank you. Do students feel that this format helps prepare them for their exams?
I hope so. At least the students who I have talked to, they share that it helps them learn. And as I mentioned, right before exams, I usually hear students saying, "Oh, I have to start preparing. I'm really stressed about the test because I have missed a chapter or something." Now they just say, "Oh, I just have to review the things and I'll be okay." Of course, I give them the same suggestions. I always tell them when you prepare, the most important thing for my class is to practice. Practice makes it perfect. So I tell them when you look at those practice questions, even the ones that we have already done in class, don't look at the answers. Try to answer the questions by yourself and then compare your answers to the ones that we have provided. Because otherwise, things might seem kind of familiar because we have done them and we have done them many times with this approach. We have had the time to do them many times. But when you try to do them by yourself, you'll notice exactly what you know and exactly what you need to work more on. So I think students felt more confident about the exam. I don't know how much of that confidence was reasonable and how much it wasn't, but I think it was partly reasonable because the students were participating more in class. Really, participation increased significantly after this. I tried this because otherwise students just when they hear something for the first time in class, they don't feel so confident probably about it. They don't always listen. And in this way, they have an incentive to prepare in advance. So they have something to say in class and they like doing it. Especially if you encourage them and tell them, okay, that's the best way. This is the only way this class works. You have to participate. That's the whole structure of the course.
Yes, great. Thank you. And the same person replied, hopefully they will remember the structure since they are likely building good study habits.
Well, I hope so.
Will you be collecting data on your next experiment?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know what kind of data. I mean, grades you mean, or I suppose, yeah. I mean, I always have the data because the exams are taken on Blackboard. We use Blackboard. I know other people use Canvas, but it's the same, similar idea. So yeah, I will have the data. I'll be able to see how the grades are different and what works better. So we'll see. And one interesting thing is that the students who I failed last semester all took the class with me this semester again. So that was a little unusual when I share this with colleagues. They say, wow, that's funny because usually students don't want to take a course with somebody who failed them once. All of them took the course with me again. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that speaks volumes. Here's another question. How do you give feedback to students' homework and quiz mistakes?
So for the quizzes are easy because the quizzes are just multiple choice, so they can see them. The system gives them to them immediately. They can see immediately what their mistakes are and what I mean after the deadline. Immediately after the deadline, they can see their answers and the correct answers as well. Regarding the homework assignments, I post the answers to the homework assignments immediately after the deadline. And I keep reminding students all the time that they have to compare their answers to mine. And from time to time, I would look at what they have provided as answers. And when I see whether the students have answered all the questions so that know what grade they have to get, 1 or 0 on a homework assignment, I kind of see where the problems are, and then I discuss those problems in class. I mean, at least the most common mistakes have to be discussed in class. And then, of course, when students have some specific questions to their homework assignment or to something that we have learned in class, I encourage them to attend office hours and to ask those questions there. And also during review sessions, we have review sessions after, in my case, it's after chapter 3, 7, and 12, but in other cases, it might be something different.
All right, thank you. And one comment, it might be interesting to see what kind of study habits they have versus what they learned and if they will continue with them.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I don't know whether I can collect data on that in some way, but it will be an interesting study, even a research paper maybe.
All right, any other last minute questions? Oh, I see one coming in. Students returning to your class after a fail says a lot about your class.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so if you have any other questions, feel free to add them in there. But I will say thank you, Stephanie, for all of the valuable information you shared with us today.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and launch a quick 3-question poll on your presentation, and that way everyone can share their feedback with us. So give me just a minute to get that set up here.
Yeah, the pleasure was mine. And if anybody has any questions, just feel free to send me an email. My email is smilovanska@ut.edu. You can see it on the slide. I hope I'm still sharing so people can see.
Yes, I can see that there. Thank you very much. So I'll give everyone just a couple minutes to fill out the poll. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to add them into the Q&A. So I'll give us just a couple minutes and then we'll get back to the end of our session.
I think I see a question. Are the
Yes.
slides available? Yes, I can make them available. I can send them to you and you can share, I guess.
Sure.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure if
Okay.
we're sending the slides out. I know we're sending the recordings out at the end of this, so I can check on the slides. But if you're
Okay.
comfortable, just since you have your contact information shared,
Okay.
Herbert, if you would like to email Stephanie, if you're okay with that, and you can
Okay. Yeah, I will. I will send the slides to the lady I was communicating with, who invited me to present today. So she'll
Okay,
probably
yes,
share
that would
with
be
you.
great. And then Herbert, if you can, I'll send you a private message. If you can send your email address, I'll send one here, then we can send you the slides. And if anyone else is interested in that, let us know. I'll check with our marketing team on whether or not they were sending the slides out. I know they're definitely doing the recordings.
Okay.
All right. While everyone's finishing up the poll, I just wanted to mention for the last hour of the day, we'll be doing something a little bit different. So if you're in the need of a little relaxation or could use a stretch, you can join us for our happy hour yoga. If you'd prefer to stretch your mind or test your knowledge, you can do our virtual Teams trivia. Or if you want to keep the conversation going with your colleagues, you can join one of our 2 roundtable discussions where you can talk through today's sessions and network with any fellow attendees. These events will begin at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can view the chat room for the event meeting room links, or you can access our conference website for a complete list of tomorrow's concurrent sessions and their descriptions. If you'd like to get an early start tomorrow, you can join us for a stretch during our 9 a.m. chair yoga session. IES, the Innovative Educator Summit, continues tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time with a keynote from Mary Ellen Dance on better understanding and managing stress. We will also be hearing from keynote speaker Nelson Laver, who will share his encouraging story of overcoming illiteracy caused by an undiagnosed dyslexia. While accessing our conference website, don't forget, I'm sure you've heard it, to swing by our exhibit hall to say hello to the Hawks team. You can view a quick 5-minute demonstration, and you can be entered to win our hourly giveaway, including your choice of a smart pen, standing desk, or $100 Amazon gift card. So thank you, and we hope to see everyone at their next session.
Thank you very much.
All right, we appreciate it. Have a good afternoon.